Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. And hey, before we say anything else, I want to say that this video is made specifically for middle schoolers. So if you were in 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, this video was made specifically for you. You know, we miss you guys. We miss being able to hang out in person, but we're so glad that we can still connect in this way. Because, you know, as a whole church, we've been in this series called After God's Own Heart, where we've been looking at the life of this guy named David. And over the next few weeks, we're going to jump in and talk about the same thing. We're going to talk about David's life. We're going to track with these next few weeks of this sermon series. Because, you know, David's life was just so interesting. He was a king, and is considered one of the best kings ever. But he still had parts of his story that we read and we're like, oh my gosh, that actually happened? Because before David was ever king, even when everyone knew he was going to become king, there was one person in particular who didn't like the fact that he was the next king in line. And that was the current king. It was this guy named Saul. Saul didn't like the fact that David was next in line to become king. But the point is, before David became king, he actually spent a lot of time trying to escape Saul. Saul was chasing after him. Saul didn't want him to become king, and so he kept trying to find David. And at one point, David is hiding in a cave. He's hiding in this cave, and he's with some other people, but he's isolated in this cave. You know, I don't know if you feel the same way. I know you're probably not literally in a cave. If you are, that sounds really cool. Let me know. I would love to hear about it. But you're probably not literally in a cave. But if you've been home this week, you might kind of feel like you're all alone, even though there are other people around you. And I want to let you know that you're not alone. You're not only alone, not with the other people who are probably watching this video, who are in this with you, but with David too. We read the story of David in the cave, and if you want to follow along, we find it in the book of 1 Samuel. It's chapter 24. It's in the Old Testament, so it's in the earlier part of the Bible. And we read this story where David's in this cave, and Saul is chasing after him. Now, Saul doesn't know David is in the cave, but believe it or not, Saul goes into that same cave. Now, Saul goes into the cave, not knowing David is in there, but David figures it out. And here's the thing, is that David has a chance to catch Saul off guard and to end this whole thing. But when David has the chance to become king, he doesn't do it. He has the chance to end it all, but he lets Saul go. But why would he do that? Well, I think maybe, just maybe, it's because that's who David was. You know, even though everything around David's life felt crazy, even though everything had changed, even though he was literally on the run, and now he's in this cave, it doesn't change how he acts. You know, David's character wasn't changed by his circumstances. You know, who he was didn't change based on where he was and what was going on around him. And for you and for me, that can feel really hard, because it is really hard. We're going to naturally want to change when the things around us change. You know, I'm sure in this past week, things have looked a little bit different. And friends, I hope you hear that when those things change, it can be really hard to feel the same way, to act the same way. And it's going to be harder than ever to feel like because things are a little bit different, that we're acting differently. But we can learn from David in this story that it doesn't have to be that way. So here's 3 ways that I think we can push ourselves to do just that. That even though things might feel a little bit differently right now, things might look a little bit differently right now, here are 3 things that we can do to continue pushing forward. The first thing is that I think you have to work to think about the bigger picture. You know, when we are kind of isolated, when we are maybe even stuck inside, it's going to be really easy to only think about our circumstances right here and now. And so what would it look like for you to think about the bigger picture? To think about what's to come, to know that your circumstances right now won't last forever. To think about, what do you want to happen? Where do you want to be? What things do you want to have done when our time, when being apart, is over? The next thing is, I think this is a great time to be extra graceful. Everyone is figuring out a new way to do things. I know you are, I know I am, I know your families are, I know your siblings are, your friends are, your pastors at the church are. We're all trying to figure out what's going on, the best way to do things, and what life looks like right now. And when we have that reminder that, hey, we're all figuring things out, and some of us might be struggling more than others, what would it look like to just be a little bit more graceful with everyone? To work to remind ourselves that everyone is trying to figure this out right now. And lastly, I hope you make the most of this time and know that how things are right now isn't how they'll be forever. You know, David, I think, made the most of his time in the cave. It was this really important thing in his life. He made the most of that time. It was important in his life. But his time in the cave didn't last forever. And so today, what are things that you want to do right now? Maybe there are conversations that you know you've been waiting to have, that it's time to have. Maybe there have been things that you've been waiting to read or to learn about, and you're like, you have the free time now to go do those things. But know that this time will not last forever. It might take a while. And it's okay to be honest about that. But it won't last forever. So make the most of this time and know that it won't last forever. Well, hey, if you are watching this on Sunday morning, I hope you get the chance to connect with your small group later today. Hopefully your families and your leaders have those links, and maybe they've already shared them with you. If you're watching this before 1:30 p.m. on the day that this video is released, and you don't have the link, send us a message. Send us a DM. If you have a phone number, send us a text, and we would love to make sure that you can connect with your small group. Your small group leaders have some questions that are based out of what we just talked about, what you just listened and watched. And it's this great chance to stay connected. Because even though we might not be able to meet in person, we still get to be able to meet online. Well, friends, thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to keep these videos coming weekly, and we're just so excited to be able to continue to connect. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and hope you have a great rest of your week, and I can't wait to see you next week. I'll see you later.